Hello, everybody. We're just gonna wait just a few minutes and let everyone filter in. We hope you're having an awesome night. Wonderful. Hi, everyone. My name is Karina. I am one of the associate directors for the Office of New Student and Family Programs. Happy Thursday. We're so happy that you're joining us with our friends in the Global Education Office. So we're going to talk about all things Study Abroad 101 tonight, but just a few housekeeping before we get started. The Q&A, as always, is up and running, ready for your questions. We do have a presentation that our friends are going to go through, so chances are they might answer your question, but feel free to have it, submit your questions. We'll be kind of going through at the end to answer any questions that you may have. So the chat is not on, but the Q&A is. There's a lot going on at Duke right now, right? Tomorrow starts our fall break. So some of you may be seeing your students here soon. And if your student's not coming home for fall break, we hope that you'll be able to see them at Family Weekend next week. We can't believe it's already here. And our friends on the screen will also be here for Family Weekend as well. So if you haven't had a chance to register yet, the registration is still open. So you can visit us, our website, or you can just Google Family Weekend at Duke, and you'll find everything that you need there. As always, email us if you need us at familyprograms@duke.edu. And with that, we're going to jump right into all things study abroad and why you're here. So Kayla and Amy, take it away.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Amy Bose, and I am the Associate Director of the Global Education Office at Duke. And today we're going to do an overview of Study Away at Duke for parents and families. This overview is going to include information about program options, what you and your student should look for when exploring your options, and ways to seek additional information. So, on to the next slide. Where will your student go? Duke offers domestic and international programs for all majors, minors, and certificates. Study abroad is a chance to explore the big why. Why did your student decide to come to Duke? What questions are they trying to answer in their academic pursuits? Your student has 11 opportunities to study away during their time at Duke. The first time they can study away is the summer after their first year. I know it's very common for people to think that, everyone goes the fall of their junior year and that's the easiest to do, easiest. But actually they have many opportunities, and that's not always the best or the easiest choice for every student.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kayla Soltis-Catella. I'm one of the assistant directors in GEO. So there are two main types of programs that GEO offers: Duke administered programs and Duke approved programs. Duke administered programs are created and are led by Duke faculty and administration. Students receive Duke credit or hybrid credit, which means that they get credit that is Duke credit, but they also get some study away transfer credit. There are a variety of Duke administered programs offered during the semester and the summer. Whereas Duke approved programs are created and led by third-party providers or other institutions. They're usually semester programs that bring back study away transfer credit. Duke credit maps directly back to courses at Duke. Hybrid and study away transfer credit all require you to go through the course approval process, and we'll look at that process a little bit later. So when you're helping your student choose a study away program, consider what classes do they need, what the cost of the program is, Are they interested in learning the language of that country? Because general Duke study away rule is if you study away in a country where the language is not English, you must take a course in that language, even if you've already completed the foreign language requirement or if you are a Pratt student. What identities do they hold and how will those identities be received in the country where they're studying away? And how much support do they need when they're on site? Different programs offer different levels of support. So Duke administered programs are a perk for Duke students. These programs are crafted by your or with your student in mind. So Duke in Berlin has computer science for computer science majors. Duke in Glasgow has public policy, gastronomy in Madrid. They can intern in LA, in New York, or in DC. They can tour the battlefields of Normandy and eat crepes while studying in Duke in France, or snorkel in the Barrier Reef on Duke in Australia. So in addition to coursework designed by Duke faculty that seamlessly fits into Duke curriculum, Duke administered programs provide additional Duke and on-site support, a variety of experiential excursions, and opportunities to study or to connect with Duke alumni.
Sorry, finding my unmute button. Oh, we're looking at programs now, right, Kayla? Are you? So one of the things I want to do is take everyone quickly to these program links that we have here. And Kayla can drop those links in the chat for you all, or in, the chat for you all. But I think it's really helpful for you to be able to look at a couple of programs, both a Duke administered and a Duke approved, to get a sense of what we're sharing with everyone online about the programs and what's really important. So I'm going to stop my share and then I'm going to start a share again. And specifically, so the first program I'm going to show you is Duke in Berlin. So Duke in Berlin is one of our flagship centers. Duke has a foreign entity there with staff who are full-time based in Duke or in Berlin. And so here on the website, you can see there's information about the program, but there's also information about how these courses map back. So you'll see in here the prerequisites, which are the classes that they need to take before they go on the program. You can see all of the different classes that are offered, including what they're listed as back here at Duke. So if these are Duke classes, so you'll see this first elective here, Berlin Architecture, Art in the City. That's an Art History 296A and German 322A. So if the student was going to take that class on campus, it would not be called Berlin Architecture, Art in the City, but there would be a similar class taught here on campus that would count for that same thing towards those requirements for majors, minors, and certificates. You can also see in parentheses below the name of the class, ALP, CCI, and CZ. Those are all areas of knowledge and modes of inquiry that students need to get so many of in order to move towards graduation. So all of our courses have that work already done for them. And so you'll see all the academics there. If you switch over to activities, you'll see all the activities that are included in the cost of the program, information about internships. You'll see the information about housing, the application process. You can see the minimum GPA, the requirements for applying, and then the how to apply. These are the requirements. So if they opened an application right now, this is what they would see as things they need to turn in order to complete an application. One of the things that I think parents care a lot about is costs. And so here on the estimated costs, you actually can, it's not active right now because this is actually our brand new website, but there'll be a link to the estimated total cost of attendance. And what that will tell you is tuition, housing, any food that's included, excursions. There will be a tuition fee and a program fee. And so that's what we bill the students. Those are the billable costs. And then just like here at Duke, there are other costs associated with attending Duke, like their meal plan, and other fees they might pay for technology and things like that. So we would itemize those things out for them. So for study abroad, an example would be the airline ticket to and from. Like we get an estimate for that amount and we give that information to students and parents. We also give it to financial aid. So financial aid receives these estimated costs of attendance, and that's how they determine how much money to give the student. It'll go towards the university bill first, but then if your student receives more aid than the amount on the university bill, the student will get a refund to help them pay for cost of living, for their airline ticket, for transportation, anything they need while they're on the ground in this example, Berlin. There's also information about visas. So when you go on a Duke In program, our office assists students with the visa process. We assist them with billing and scholarships and all of those pieces. If you click on the next tab, you can see the program staff, our happy program staff who are waiting to greet them in Berlin. You also can find their email addresses there. So you can see Kayla's name is here because Kayla is the assistant director in charge of Duke in Berlin. But then you can also see the people on site who are there for your student. And then on this page, you can read other student testimonials about the program and about other students who have been on the program previously. So all of that information is on our website and it's there before they would apply for the next term. So like we're getting ready to open up summer and fall. So like fall information is going to load into here very quickly. If a student was looking at a spring program still, the cost information is up for them. Now this is an example of a Duke In program, or I'm sorry, a Duke approved program. And so it says in big letters, Duke approved. University of Hong Kong is a direct enroll opportunity where students can go directly to the University of Hong Kong and take classes there. But it's a little bit more complicated because the University of Hong Kong is not controlled by Duke University in any way, shape, or form. A Duke approved program is really us just saying we've approved this as a program here at Duke. It's suitable for our students both academically and also health and safety. So we do some basic vetting of these programs. But if something happens at the University of Hong Kong, like your student gets a bad grade or your student is having a hard time in a class, we're reliant on the University of Hong Kong to respond to that request. So you can see here what's the information that's available to students on the Hong Kong page. There are links. We link out to the Hong Kong website as much as we can because that information is going to be the best and the newest information. You can also see something called Best Fit, and we're going to talk about Best Fit in some later slides, but this program is suitable for most majors. The University of Hong Kong is a major university with very similar departments to Duke, and so all of the classes pretty much that are offered here at Duke are offered at the University of Hong Kong. There's important program information. So for this one, we want you to know that if you're going in the fall, you're not going to receive an admission decision until June and July. That kind of freaks students out. They go to leave campus in May, and they're like, wait, I'm leaving the spring semester at Duke and I don't know where I'm going in the fall. But that's something to know just about some of our partner universities, especially in Asia, that usually do admissions decisions a little bit later in the summer. You can also see here the language of instruction, the type of housing, areas of study. And down here, you'll find links to the academic calendar. You'll see what the course load is. So we're going to talk about courses and course approvals. But this right here is the thing your student needs to know when going on a non-Duke program, because it's not always that 4 classes abroad equals 4 Duke classes. Instead, sometimes the classes are weighted differently and there's different amounts for full-time enrollment. And so it's really important that the student pays attention to what is in this box. It's even in a box. We've called it out as clearly as we can. And we give samples. So like, this is what their enrollment should look like. You know, they'll pick whatever classes they want, but they need to be enrolled in 5 classes with 6 credits each. And those are 6 Hong Kong credits. Those are not Duke credits. There's important academic information about the application process, what you need to do for Duke, and then what you need to do for Hong Kong. The cost information, so I think we have a slide about costs a little bit later, but you can see here that there's a study abroad fee that's associated with the cost of going on a Duke approved program. You can see information about financial aid and 529 tuition reimbursement plans. Especially as parents, 529s are really important. Duke cannot bill for non-Duke programs. So if you go on a Duke In program, Duke is going to bill you for the program. In these cases, you're going to pay directly to these universities. And if you have a 529, you need to check into the rules and regulations of your 529 to determine whether or not you can use it. And then there's some contacts down here that are helpful, mostly at HKU, because the people who are going to help them while they're there are mostly HKU individuals. And then there's some additional resources down here at the bottom. But that's what you can expect to see on all of our pages, and the information you can expect to find about, let's see, gotta get the PowerPoint back up. The information you can expect to find when you look into the various types of programs that we offer at Duke.
And I'll just jump in to add there that please note we are currently in the process of updating the GEO website. So the pages that Amy just showed you are in the application portal are from the new system, which will be linked to our website in the next month. The website upgrade is designed to make searching for things easier and finding information on programs easier. So that will all go live before the fall applications open here in the next 20-something days.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see. Oh, and I guess the next slide is showing the course approval database. Kayla, do you want to walk through the course approval database?
Yes, I can do that.
I'll bring it up and you can, if that works. Realize I stole one of your slides, so.
No, I gave you one of my slides kindly. So
Is that how that happened?
Okay, so if your student is studying on a Duke approved program or a Duke administered program that has that hybrid credit, which means that they're taking a course or many courses at a university that is not Duke. So for example, in France, that could be Sciences Po, and Duke in Madrid, that could be UC3M. They will need to get those courses that they're taking at those non-Duke universities approved by departments for transfer back at Duke. So there is this entire webpage that is right here that spells out this course approval process. And essentially what it requires is looking up the courses that the student wants to take at that university, obtaining a syllabus, and then logging in to this webpage, and the link is at the top of the webpage, and the database, and then submitting the syllabus with the department and the course that they're requesting. We don't have access to it because we are staff members, and so the NetID just rejects us and won't let us in. But once they go in, there's a form. They can request what department they're requesting it from. So if you wanted to take a engineering course at UC3M, you could say, I'm requesting ECE 300 whatever at UC3M. Here's a syllabus, and it'll be submitted through the process with someone in our department. And then once the course gets approved, then the student will receive notification that that has happened. They can also use the course approval database in this link to search courses that have been pre-approved. So some departments, not all departments, will allow courses that they've pre-approved to appear in the course approval database. So your student can go in and they can search by program, they can search by department, they can search by term, and they can see every course that the department has allowed to be pre-approved for that program within the last 5 years. So the thing that is really important about this is, well, first of all, it can help your student plan for their semester abroad and help them identify programs that will work for them. But the other thing that is important is that this is not an exhaustive list. This is just the list of courses that students have gotten approved in the last 5 years. And if you'll remember, within the last 5 years, there was kind of a major global event. And so there were 2 years in the last 5 years that we didn't have any courses that were put in there. So just because a program doesn't have courses listed there does not mean that they aren't offered there. So they should go to the university's website or the program's website and look for syllabi, and then submit it through that process that I just discussed on the first page before you enter into the database. Some other important things to note is that just because the course is listed there now does not mean that it will be offered the semester that your student is abroad. So this, like I said, this is a conglomerate of all of the courses that students have been approved and that departments have allowed to stay in the course approval database within the last 5 years. So it may have been offered 4 years ago and it is no longer being offered. And we typically don't get that notification. We look at the number of requests when we remove courses and say, okay, this has been here for 5 years. Do we need a new course approval to go through a department, or can we leave it in there? And so that's kind of how that works. So your student should always have backups when looking for courses, because there is never a guarantee that those courses will be offered during any given semester. All right.
Okay, so I know one of the things that I mentioned before, parents are concerned with costs, as they should be. And so this is how we look at the breakdown of the cost of the two different types of programs. So essentially, the Duke administered programs are tuition plus a program fee. The Duke approved or the Duke administered programs are not more than the cost of attendance at Duke, but they are similar because the student is getting housing, Duke classes, Duke credit, and this is set up to be something really special for them. So there's a lot of like, I guess, Dukeness that gets like infused into these programs. And so sometimes housing is separate, but that's usually just on the domestic programs because there's a little bit different system for booking domestic housing. But you can see for the Duke Approves, the cost is totally up to the university or the provider, and those costs vary widely. There are super affordable programs that are less than Duke tuition, and there are programs that are more than Duke tuition. And so students need to be cognizant of those costs. And then they also have the study abroad fee that Duke charges them on top of that. It is really important that students think about the cost of living in the place where they're going, because we've had more students surprised by how expensive, say, Copenhagen is, and not plan appropriately for funding or for money for food or transportation. And that can really put a damper sometimes on their experience. There are a lot of wonderful programs in places that are very affordable. And our advisors in our office, and we'll talk about how your student can come in for advising, are really good at helping students think about like where cost of living is more in line with maybe Durham, or even less than Durham. Additional expenses typically include things like food, cell phone plan, airline ticket, visa costs, but it varies by program. Like if they're staying in a homestay, especially on the Duke Inn programs, that's usually included in the cost of the program, and they're usually getting several meals a day from the host family while they're living there. I always think it's a good idea, and I always recommend that students start a budget to help them plan. I know budgets aren't sexy, but I do enjoy having students sit down and really think about what living a semester in another country is going to cost total out of pocket. So some programs, like I said, are more expensive than Duke, but you need to be aware that financial aid will never pay more than the cost of attendance at Duke. So if you have a student who is on full aid at Duke and there's no like estimated family contribution, if your student selects a program that's more expensive than Duke, there will be out-of-pocket costs associated with that. But financial aid looks at that total estimated cost of attendance that we talked about, the airline tickets, the visas, all of that, and uses your FAFSA that you filed for that year to assess what is going to come from financial aid. If your student has scholarships, if the scholarships will apply, if they receive scholarships from their study abroad program, how that will apply. And then if there's an estimated family contribution, it is still expected that will come with the student so that they can pay for their cost of living while they're on site. You should always talk to financial aid if you have any questions about your specific financial aid plan, because at Duke, there are about 7,000 different ways that students get funded to be here at Duke. And I don't have access to that information. No one in my office does. So I can't tell when I'm working with a student what their financial aid package is. So really, this is a case where they need to go to their financial aid counselor and have a one-on-one conversation about their specific circumstances. And I already mentioned the 529s, but that's on this slide too. Just something for you to check into if your student's considering a non-Duke program, because that billing is going to come from that other entity, either a university or a provider. And you want to make sure that your 529 or your tuition reimbursement plan can work with that type of billing, because Duke, again, will not be able to bill you for non-Duke programs. So in the fall of 2023, some of you might have heard that we had a lot of students going on the same programs. And while we loved that there were more and more students studying abroad, we've had more students study abroad since before the pandemic. We're having record numbers, and we love that. I'm so ecstatic that so many Duke students are choosing to study abroad. But in 2023, we had a little problem, and that was that 56% of the students studying abroad were on just 3 programs. And we have over 140 programs. So this high enrollment caused issues with registration, housing, health and safety. We had more problems in the fall of 2023 than I have ever had before. And the amount of time I spent on the phone with parents who were upset because their students couldn't get into classes, or because registration was delayed, or because they were having to open another section of a class and the instructor wasn't very good. It pushed us into a place where we needed to do something to address it, because the students were all wanting to go together, and the word of mouth was really like, these are the best programs. Well, the word of mouth was, they're not bad programs. The word of mouth just wasn't like 100% accurate. They were programs that were good for some people, and other people, they were maybe not the right fit. And so in 2024, this cycle that we're running right now, these students were chosen for their programs based on a lottery. The lottery was not my ideal, but it was what ended up happening, because there was no clean way to create a fair system to get people on the programs that they wanted to go on. And we wanted to limit enrollment on the programs. So looking forward to 2025. I do not want to do a lottery again. It's like a bad word in my office. Don't say lottery anymore. But the new process, we're going based on something called best fit. And so this is a multi-step process where we're asking students to really think about their needs holistically. What kind of academics do they need? What kind of housing do they want? If they absolutely don't want to live with a homestay, then let's look at programs that don't have homestays. If they absolutely want to live, in an apartment, let's look at programs with apartments. Cost of living in the city, on-site support. A lot of our students just need they get a lot of support on Duke's campus. And so some students need more support than others. A lot of these direct enroll programs are sort of like, good luck. And they have to really seek out help if they need it. We're also asking them to think about their identity. And students are attending workshops this semester. And in these workshops, they're learning about this worksheet that they're going to fill out that asks them questions about all of these things. And as you saw on that Duke approved page for the University of Hong Kong, the best fit was all majors. So one of the criteria that we're going to evaluate based off of is if you are a best fit for that program. So like University of Hong Kong, everybody's a best fit. Congratulations, you've already checked that category off. And so as they reflect in each of these categories, there is a rubric that we actually give them during the workshop, along with the questions that they'll ask, or they will be asked on the worksheet. And so all of the information is given to them in advance. And we're really just asking them to look at programs as a single individual, not as a group. And I know that can be scary because students want to go with friends. But the thing is, the students end up going on programs and they're never alone. Like, these aren't students going off on their own. Instead, we have a mixer before they all go. And like, you'll sit at the table for the mixer checking people in, and inevitably everyone walks in and they're like, oh my God, I didn't know you were going on this program with me. So it's not alone, and it is with people they already know. And it's also a great opportunity for growth and for stretching and being flexible and being resilient, all of those things that are so important to future employers. And if students have any questions about this process, we stand ready to help. There are like 5 different ways that they can access our office and get help with this process. We will still limit enrollment to each program to 50 students, because 50 Duke students on one program is still a lot of Duke students. And we have gone through the process of building out the course approval database for the majors that are harder to find classes for. And there's not just one program, there's not just 2 programs for those individuals. There's many programs for those individuals. And so we want to work with students to make sure they find their best fit, they're happy with the program they're going on, and that it checks all of these boxes for them, and not just the, oh, my friends all said I should go here box.
Okay, so students should begin thinking about their study abroad early, generally 6 months to a year before they plan to go, depending upon the program. And it's always a good idea to have backups and to be flexible. Some programs do fill quickly, and it's always best to apply early and complete materials as soon as possible. And we'll get to that in a second. So the fall and summer Duke administered applications open soon. That is November 1st, so approximately 21 days from today if you are counting. And so these applications are reviewed on a rolling basis for Duke administered programs, reviewed on a rolling basis. Duke approved worksheets also open on November 1st. And so when we said apply early, they open on November 1st, and we encourage them to apply early. But for Duke approved programs, there is a December 1st early consideration deadline. So as long as students submit their Duke approved worksheet before December 1st, they will all be reviewed in the same batch. So they have 1 month to open as many applications as they want, and they can open up to 3 applications per term, and any combination of Duke administered or Duke approved. And so we encourage them to take their time throughout November to review programs and find their best fit. So if a student fills out the Duke approved worksheet and submits before the end of the day on December 1st, they'll know the outcome of their submission by January 8th, which is the first day of classes. After December 1st, students will be considered on a rolling basis and receive their decisions after January 8th. Students can submit a Duke approved worksheet, for any program up until that program's semester application deadline. So some of those deadlines might be March 1st and some of them aren't until May 30th. Once students receive notification from Duke that their worksheet has been approved to apply, they must complete the application on the program provider or host institution's website. And there is a link to that actual application on the brochure page where they're going to open up that worksheet. Each program has their own deadlines, so they need to check the institution or the provider's websites for specifics about when they should submit their application by for that program. The summer deadline for Duke administered programs is February 15th. Fall deadlines vary by program. I'll just say that Duke and Madrid's is earlier than most other programs. So they should check that on the brochure page. And then decisions are issued typically on a rolling basis or on a deadline basis, and it varies by program. Again, Duke and Madrid is largely the exception there. And then spring 2026, okay, we're gonna go way in the future, open on March 15th. And those deadlines also vary by program. Duke and LA and Duke and DC tend to be the exceptions there. Decisions for Duke administered programs are typically issued on a rolling or deadline basis. So I already said that. It was just repeated on the last slide.
This one's still UK. Oh no, must be me now. Okay. So we do want to draw your attention to some policies because I think these are important, and there are things that you might have your student discussing with you, or just things that are good for you as parents to know. There's a lot of information. And I know, like, we live in a world where like the terms and conditions pop up on things and we just like click confirm and okay. But there's a lot of things in study abroad that are really important, like those course equivalencies and like the course approval process, or like the course load that the student needs to be in on a program. Here are some other policies that you should be aware of. So FERPA, and I'm sure you've heard of FERPA, but by law, GEO is required to protect your students' information. Our program advisors can share anything and everything that's publicly available. So like, that's why we put so much information on the websites, right? Like we can find almost everything. But we're legally prohibited from sharing any details about your student's specific program, even if you're the one paying for it. If you would like specific information about your student's program, the best way to go about that is to just make sure your student's included on the email, or if you call in, have the student on, patch the student into the phone call and we can just ask if it's okay if we share. So maintaining good information with your student throughout this entire process is really important, because your student is likely making decisions that, like the cost of the program. They could apply to a program that's not the right program for them in terms of what you're willing to meet them with for cost. And so these are important decisions, and they do probably need to be making them more in line with you all than they necessarily think they do. We do not allow any independent housing on study away programs. Almost, I've never had an issue with study abroad programming, finding accommodations for students who need different types of housing. We even this last year, we had students who needed to keep kosher and we found them appropriate housing. And so there's really a wide variety of housing available. And so even if your student has some accommodations or disability, those are all things that we can help them address. They just need to come talk to us so we can help them to start working through it. Students must take a full course load. There are no overloads and there are no underloads. I feel like that rule, I say it at least 4 times a day. Somebody will say, well, does it matter if I just like don't take? And I'm like, no overloads, no underloads. What if I just add this like independent study, no overloads, no underloads? They have to take the course load that's assigned to them and they have to take all of their classes on the program. They cannot do like hybrid mixing Duke class, like Duke campus classes with that won't work. If you have a chance, check out the student handbook. That's the QR code that's here on the screen. It's publicly available on the GEO website or on the policy page under About, and it contains everything you need to know about study away. It's a general guide or general policy overview for study away. There are handbooks specific to our specific programs, but you'll find a lot of information in that handbook. Another resource that parents often need to know about is the Office of Global Health and Safety. They help us in GEO respond to incidents abroad. They're available 24/7, but your student should always reach out to their staff on site first. If they've rolled an ankle in the streets of Madrid, like we can't do a whole lot for them in Durham, but if they can't get a hold of their site personnel or if something happens and they're off-site or they want to get attention for continuation of care is something that OGHS does. So like, let's say your student receives some kind of treatment here in Durham, like once a month. How are they going to do that while they're in Paris? And so OGHS is the organization that helps them work through that with a partner that we have called ISOS, and that's International Coverage Abroad, that helps us find healthcare providers. It is not health insurance. And so you need to either be on the Duke Health Insurance, the SIMP program, SMIP, or if you have your own insurance, you need to verify that it'll work while they're abroad. There are a few countries that do require students to purchase insurance. So like Spain is one of them where they will have to have Spanish health insurance in order to get their visas. Make sure you take a moment before your student goes abroad to discuss insurance. I remember being in college and having like my health insurance card from my parents and not really knowing anything besides like I just had to show it to somebody when I was checking out, and then a magic balance appeared and I had to pay it. But help your student really understand what kind of healthcare is covered. Should they be going to urgent care? Should they be going to the emergency room? Should they be trying to make a doctor's appointment? What is the best way to use their insurance? And if they are on SMIP at Duke, then there is a handout with SMIP on the student insurance website that goes over all of that. Ultimately, families are responsible for signing up for health insurance, travel insurance if you want it, property insurance, and tuition insurance. So if you decide to go through or sign up for any of those, that's an independent process not done through GEO. Investigate those with your students and make the best choice for your family because it's not going to be the same as everyone else's. If your student's interested in studying away, they can attend one of our events for more information. So we have there are four different ways to access our office on here, and that QR code will take you to the events calendar, where you can see all the dates where all these things are being offered. Study Abroad 101 is kind of similar to this session. It's an overview of all study abroad. It kind of gives them the basics of like what you need to look for when you're navigating the websites. The Duke Approved Workshop is just if your student's going to go on one of those non-Duke programs, because we want students to go to hear about that best fit process. We want them to know how to fill out the worksheet and feel confident doing that. We also have walk-in hours that are great for just quick questions. And we also do program-specific information sessions. And our advisors do one-on-one appointments too. So your students have lots and lots of opportunities to interface with us. So that is the end of our slides, and I see that the Q&A has been hopping. So I will take the slide deck down, and maybe Haley or Kayla, Haley, good grief. Kayla, do you want to maybe start with talking about, we had some questions in the forum beforehand about pre-med and how pre-med works with study abroad.
Yeah. So pre-med students can study abroad, absolutely. There are programs that work particularly well for pre-med students, and they can search them by just looking in My Global Ed. They can type in, pre-med or biological sciences or things like that. But one really important thing to consider for pre-med students, their pre-health advisor will tell them that typically they should not be taking any general pre-med requirements while they're studying abroad, because not every med school will count those requirements if they're taken abroad. And their general rule is if one of the schools that you are applying to won't accept it, then you shouldn't take it while it's abroad. So they should take all of their, Physics 2 courses, OChem and things like that while they're back on campus. And so my general role for pre-med students and for engineering students is to really sit down as soon as you can and start mapping what courses you can take and how you can make your semester abroad a bit more flexible, because programs that have really strict course requirements have more difficult times finding programs that offer specifically those classes that they want to take at that time. So if you're able to work out your schedule in a way that allows you to be more flexible, you will open up literally your world to more program opportunities.
Yeah. And really they're looking for skills. Like, so the great thing about pre-med is they're gaining skills that they can speak to in their interviews and in their applications. And when we talk to the pre-med advisors, that's really what they talk up about study abroad. The same as, oh, I guess it's a little bit different when you talk about STEM and computer science. STEM and computer science can be more difficult for students when they go abroad. But like I was sort of trying to show you in the course approval database, like when I select biology, there's a ton. Neuroscience, there's a ton. Computer science, there's a ton. And so there are lots and lots of options. Engineering is one area where sometimes it can be a little set. And honestly, that's mostly because everyone chooses to go in the fall of their junior year.
Yes.
If they went other times, they would be looking for other courses, and we'd be able to find those too. But engineers typically need to take 2 engineering classes while they're abroad, and they're typically pretty set. So like a biomed, for example, would need systems and signals, and I don't remember what the other one.
Biomaterials.
Biomaterials, yeah.
And
And so you'll find those in our database pretty easily on multiple programs. It's just that making sure they're offered in that semester, making sure that
there's a space in the classes.
yeah, there's space in the classes. more and more, we're seeing a lot of our engineering students and our, before the pandemic, this was very true. More of our engineering students are going back to Australia, New Zealand, and also to the United Kingdom. Because there are some very strong institutions in those two regions.
In Ireland too, even.
Yeah, Ireland. So like that whole being in those two spaces, one, it's already in English, so the classes, you don't have to look for stuff that's in English at a university that might be mostly taught in French or something like that. So we are seeing more and more students return to those universities, and that's where they were going pre-pandemic. So that we see as a bonus, as a plus for those students. Um, we did have a question in the write-in about what Duke handles versus what the student and the parent handle. And that last slide where I was talking about health and safety, I kind of broke down like you all need to like deal with the insurance parts of this. But if they're on a Duke In program, we have more capabilities to help. Like we know more about our programs. And also if your student has special circumstances, we're able to work directly with our staff on site to be able to get them extended time on tests, to be able to I had a student who had a broken foot and needed to be on a first floor apartment. Like we can make those changes a lot easier because there are programs and we know the people who are on site very well. Um, I'm at the mercy of the other university or the provider, which most of the time they want to do it for us because the students are paying, right? It's a financial exchange and they're willing to help us out. But also they're balancing the priorities of more than just Duke students. And so Duke students may not always get like preference. They may not always be the top the way they would be with our programs. And so that's a difference. Like as you're looking at things with your student, like their independence level, your comfort level with them, like help seeking and all of those different things. It's really important that they work with you on those pieces. But we'll offer guidance for our own programs on airline tickets, visas. Um, we help students with insurance, bookings, all of that other stuff. So um, that's the big difference with Duke In and Duke Approved is that sometimes you're a little bit more on your own. Let's see. Kayla, do you want to talk about athletes going abroad?
Yeah, so athletes can absolutely go abroad. Obviously, it becomes difficult for them, based on their training schedule. Um, we actually have someone who works with the ACE program, who is a Duke alumni and was on swim and dive and did a semester in Duke in Madrid because that was important to him and that's what he wanted to do. But so Duke does have the ACE program, which is I can't remember the acronym off the top of my head, but is a program specifically for Duke athletes to do international kind of service projects. And they typically happen in the summer and varying lengths. And it is only for athletes. They make the programs specifically so that they are near training facilities and things like that so they can continue training and everything that they need to for that. So that is one really great resource for student athletes who want to travel abroad and aren't set on a semester or anything like that. And if they are set on a semester, then have them come in and talk to one of the GEO advisors and let's see what we can work out for them. It's not impossible. It just requires a lot of planning.
Let's see. All right, let's see if there's some questions in here that we can
I
and
answered a bunch of them.
yes, I've been kind of typing away too. How many Duke students do you have studying in any given semester at the University of Hong Kong? We're back to like um 6 or 7. It's relatively popular, especially with students who are there's a lot of heritage seeking students, but then also Chinese language, and students who are interested in business and econ and those. Hong Kong is really hopping for those kind of things. So we do get a steady stream of people going there, but it's certainly not. Most students gravitate towards Europe, which is good for some students. But also there's a lot of great programs that aren't in Europe, and Hong Kong HKU is one of them.
Mhm.
They're a fully English university. You don't have to take a foreign language while you're there because Chinese is not considered the official language of Hong Kong. So you can take all your classes in English. And it's a really robust university that has a lot of classes students need. Um,
We talked a little bit about Pratt and pre-med already.
uh-huh. See.
If our student is doing the 2 webinars next week, do they have to wait until after to set up a one-on-one, or can they book them now or for after the webinars? You can set up a one-on-one appointment now. It will ask you if you've attended before you set up the appointment, so you'll need to click and say I am planning to or no. And then it will strongly remind you to attend those webinars before it'll let you make an appointment, but you can still schedule them now.
Yes, our advisors like them to have that information beforehand, just so when they come in, they're coming from a place of common knowledge. We know that students learn in all different kinds of ways, and so one of the things that we've done is, like, in addition to the website, we've also launched videos to help students with some of these things, like the course approval process. Kayla could probably drop the link for the YouTube.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can find it. But
I'll be able to find it
okay.
somewhere.
But we like students to
You
come in to talk to our advisors with some predetermined knowledge, so that or some pre-understood knowledge, so that they are speaking to the advisor and asking questions about the things that they've learned or the things that are different for their situation. If they come in and they don't know about the workshops, what they learned in the workshops yet, then the advisors are really just repeating the information that's going to be offered in the workshop. And that's not really a great use of their because they really are subject matter experts in helping students go through all of these different stages of studying away and deciding where they're going to study away. And actually, me just saying study away right now reminded me too. Kayla mentioned it in the examples, but we do have domestic programs. So, like, our Duke and DC program is public policy, and they can get their internship hours done in DC. We have a New York program that's finance, and we also have a New York program that is creative industries, looking at like basically anyone who wants to work in the creative side of New York, either from a computer science or a theater or a dance or marketing and communications, journalism. They can do that in New York. And then in LA, it's a similar program to New York, but there are internships with that we help them obtain using alumni connections, using organizations that have come to us and asked specifically for Duke interns. My experience working with the internships is wonderful because people who work with Duke students always say, you can send me more Duke students next time. And so we get a lot of repeat internship customers, and the students really get such wonderful experiences out of those, and access they wouldn't normally get in other places.
So we have like 2 minutes left. So while Amy's looking at questions to see what is important to answer, I am going to drop the Google form link for the questions that we posted with the invitation calendar invite for this webinar. And when you do submit a question, it does give us your email address. So if you have a burning question that we didn't answer, feel free to drop it in the form and we will try and get back to you.
Yes, we would love to continue answering your questions. We also, though, want to be mindful that it is 8 o'clock. But I hope you all got a lot of information from this, that you got some helpful links that you can refer back to when you're talking to your students. And we really are like, we're a very parent-friendly office. Like a lot of parents call and say, don't tell my student that. But if you have questions about like, when is the bill coming or like whatever, that's stuff that's all up online. And we're happy to talk to you about that kind of stuff. And if we do get to a place where FERPA is a problem, we'll just say like, can we bring your student into this conversation so that, you know, we're sure they're okay with that. But I will work tomorrow to answer some questions via email and get the rest of these answered. So we really appreciate you all coming today.
Yes, thank you
And
so much.
yes, and you're
Hopefully
always
you learned some things.
yeah. All right.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Kayla. Talk soon.
Yep.